You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/cheapgeek. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, episode 191.
It's Cryptid season, Jersey Devil, Dover Demon, and UFO sightings.
Yeah. So here we are again. Welcome back to CreepGeeks Podcast. If this is your very first time listening to the podcast, we're glad to have you here. If it's something that you listen to on the regular, very much appreciated.
Yep.
Got a lot of stuff to talk about. So just in case you're tuning in for the very first time, this podcast is about what?
CreepGeeks Podcast is an offbeat news podcast that takes a lighthearted approach to the paranormal, cryptid, strange, the silly, and trending tech topics circulating the web, broadcasting paranormal news and fun stories from our underground bunker in the mountains of western North Carolina.
Yeah, I figured we'd tell you all about it because this podcast episode is about cryptids and stuff.
Yeah.
And something that we've noticed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's a couple different ways you can support the podcast. And also, if you would like to jump in and sort of contribute to the podcast, maybe you have a story you want to share or an instance or something like that, or maybe a topic or two that you'd like us to discuss in great and agonizing detail, you can do that.
Yep.
We have a phone number if you want to call and leave a message.
That phone number is 575-208-4025.
And that's the Roswell area code. Or you can do our Facebook group, which is CreepGeeks
Podcast Facebook group.
Yeah, just do CreepGeeks. It's there. You can also go to CreepGeeks.com. There's a contact form there that you can click on and fill out some information if you'd like. And we have a pretty, we have a pretty good Instagram page going. And that's
CreepGeeks Pod.
CreepGeeks Pod.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have a couple different ways that you can kind of jump in there and support the podcast if you'd like to. We also have a Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/CreepGeeks, you can find some stuff that we share there, exclusive to patrons.
Yep.
So, all sorts of different things. Yeah. But anyway, this is kind of one of those times of year where it seems that cryptid sightings are going to be on the rise, and it's already started.
Yeah. Cryptid season.
That's what we call it, because it seems like when the pumpkin spice starts to come out, that's when all the weird stuff starts to show up and people start to have more sightings.
Well, spring and fall, but mostly fall.
Fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, this is something that we follow. We follow sightings and things like that, and we look at different types of cryptid experiences that people seem to be experiencing. And they seem to happen more in the fall. So there becomes a time during the year, if you kind of do, sort of pay attention to stuff all year long, where you pretty much have kind of a dead spot and not really a whole lot goes on, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens or gets reported as happening.
Allegedly.
Yeah, and then it kind of dies out, and then it sort of comes back again. And what we've noticed, it seems like in the fall time, when the leaves start to change, and when it starts to cool off just a tiny bit, or the beginnings thereof, right around, Labor Day weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
Things start to get reported, and it sort of builds up, and then when it gets cold, it kind of dies out, like around Christmas time, around December or so, and then it sort of slowly starts to come back in. And what we've seen over the past couple of years of doing this is that seems to be a consistent thing. And when it gets cold, as some places in the States are having a sort of a cold snap. I think like Colorado, temperature is supposed to drop like 40 degrees in a day or something crazy like that.
And then it's going to hit New Mexico too. Like I have a friend, she's already like pulling up all her tomatoes and all her chilies. So.
And it kind of got me to thinking, it's like, is this something that happens because of the changing of the seasons or what? Or is it the people that actually change and it becomes more of a thing? And And there's a couple different, ways to sort of look at this that can support itself epidemiologically, which just means, the study of coincidence, right? To sort of figure this sort of thing out. And so we thought we would kind of take a look at some of the sightings that are kind of happening, if you will, and also some of the more maybe lesser known cryptids.
Yeah.
That are pretty interesting. As in the Jersey Devil and Dover Demon. Right? And also the UFO sightings. Now, some people are going to say, how dare you call the Jersey Devil a lesser known cryptid? And I'm comparing that when you compare it to Sasquatch, Yeti, Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
Loch Ness Monster. Maybe the Wolfman / Dogman. Those are pretty popular. Everybody kind of knows about them. Jersey Devil is one of those things that's like you hear about. I think it's more of a Northeast thing than a down south kind of thing. And Dover Demon, I don't know if you've heard about that, but if you're from that area and you're all worked up because I'm calling it sort of a lesser known cryptid, you'll be fine. Don't worry about it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying not to cause any problems.
Well, like some of the other cryptids that we do talk about, like previous episodes, it's the whole podcast. You can spend that whole episode exploring the topic.
Yeah, and you could do that with these two, but we're not going to because we're really looking at like maybe what's going on here is like why does it seem to be that we see or hear more of these than around this time of year than any other. So we figured we would kind of do that. So anyway, here we go. Let's talk about this for a second. So when we talk about cryptid season, what do we mean by that? Well, I mean, it's like anything, right? You got like deer hunting season and all that sort of thing. It's just, it seems to be that cryptid season happens around the fall, right? And it just happens to be that we, have more sightings or instances or possibly even reports of cryptid sightings.
Or do we just associate this time of year with spooky stuff happening, therefore we experience cryptids?
I don't know. See, that's the whole thing. I mean, okay, so does Halloween sort of usher in the sort of the spooky season? And the spooky season turns into more cryptid sightings? Or
is it environmental and climate? I mean, like you were saying, the cold snap and the leaves turning. So
is it because they're playing it on TV all the time?
Oh, yeah. Is it because of COVID and we're all stuck, like, social distancing away from people?
I don't know.
So...
yeah, so pretty much let's talk about the Dover Demon first, okay?
Okay.
So if you don't know anything at all about the Dover Demon, you might find this thing kind of a weird sort of, cryptid.
Yeah, and there's some things about this one that struck me. Well, the first thing, as far as, like, cryptid season, this is spring, so this kind of goes with my, weird things happening in the springtime. And this was in April of 1977.
This is going to be the first, like, reported instance of the Dover Demon that's been reported.
Yeah. So 4 teenagers in Dover, Massachusetts witnessed a horrifying alien creature. But before they could figure out an explanation, the Dover Demon disappeared.
Yeah.
And this thing, if you look at the drawings and the sketches, it's funny because to me, it looks like what creepypasta and the internet kind of calls a rake almost.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's the one that has like a watermelon-shaped head, and it sort of walks around, like on all fours almost. Like I like what they put here, like an emaciated monkey.
Oh. Yes.
And this is like 20 miles outside of Boston, Mass. Right? Mm-hmm. And what makes this so weird is like it showed up and allegedly petrified these guys, and then it was gone. So over the span of 2 nights in 1977, the teenagers reported to see a similar creature that kind of looks like the Dover Demon, right? And there's really no explanation for it. So the first, they talk about this guy, William Bartlett, right? He was, at the time was 17 years old. He's like, he was the first person to actually see it.
Yeah.
And he has like 2 friends, like Andy Brody and Mike Mazzocco, and they were going along Farm Street. They witnessed the creature standing on the wall, its eyes glowing in the headlights, and it wasn't a dog or cat, had no tail, had an egg-shaped or watermelon-shaped head.
Yeah.
And it was pale and kind of skinny and white. And it just sort of, he said it reminded him of children with distended stomachs. Now, this is like, when you hear this description, you're like...
that's an alien gray.
And it sounds like an alien of some kind, or what we have a description of, like the small, like the grays, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was the way it walked, I guess, is what made it kind of weird, but... there's a black and white drawing of it where it basically shows, it's standing there holding on to a tree with a big watermelon-shaped head, and it's like big, long fingers gripping a tree. and its feet, like toes, were long enough to mold to rocks. So it's got those long, spindly toes.
Ugh.
Yeah.
I'm getting goosebumps. So
Tendril-like hands. So, like a grave with these long, spindly fingers and, big, long tendril toes. It's the kind of toes that could probably pick up a rock and flick it at you.
Yeah. And then I guess 2 hours after this kid saw it, John Baxter, 15-year-old John Baxter, was walking his girlfriend home near a heavily wooded area, and he claimed that he got within 15 feet of a creature that looked remarkably like the one Bartlett saw.
Yeah.
So...
And there was a kid named Abby Brabham who saw it.
Oh, wow.
And she's the one that said, stand up next to a tree, much like the sighting that there was the night before. So over 2 nights, there was like a bunch of sightings that happened.
Yeah.
And, if you plot the locations, they were over a distance of like 2 miles, and all the sightings were made near water. So now this website that we have here, and we have links to everything we talk about in the show notes, says possible explanations for the sightings, right? And it's like there was 3 witnesses of the Dover demon that had basically the same or eerily similar story. That was something that was kind of human but not quite animal about the creature, right?
Yeah.
And it seemed undeniable that something uncanny had come to Dover. And some people chalk up the strange encounters to inebriation. Yeah, when in doubt, they're drunk, right? That's what witnesses say. So, they're probably just drunk. And it says, while Bartlett says he and his friends were looking for a beer that night, they never did imbibe. That means drink. They weren't able to get any. So, yeah. And here's what gets me, right? It says, alternatively, the creature could have been a foal or baby moose mistaken for something more sinister. Though April wasn't foal season and the moose were long gone from Dover at that time of the sighting, it says, additionally, foals and moose don't stand on hind legs, nor do they sit up on top of walls. So it's kind of unlikely that whatever it is not like a fox or an animal or a moose. It was some kind of creature with long, thin fingers, more human-like in its form than an animal.
A moose and a foal have hooves, not tendrily gross fingers.
Yeah. And, here's the thing. We've talked about this stuff before, when people from the outside looking into the situation try to explain it. And they'll say things like, oh, well, you mistook this for a big giant owl. Or you thought this was a raccoon. What you really seen was a raccoon. If you live in that area, you are probably more familiar with the flora and fauna of that area than most other people.
Yeah. And I mean,
it just kind of bugs me sometimes. It's like, these guys obviously seen something weird, multiple people, different locations, right? A distance in between the two, and they're told that, oh, you possibly seen a baby deer.
And they're familiar with the area. I mean, the one kid that was walking his girlfriend home, they were near a heavily wooded area. I mean, if it's that late at night, he probably feels comfortable in that area. He knows the terrain. He knows the environment. Yeah.
And then, and this is, something that was attributed to Lauren Coleman, who basically he's from Maine, and he's a noted cryptozoologist, right? He says he thinks that all 3 sightings were credible. He spoke to the teens within a week of the reported sightings and says we have a credible case over 25 hours by individuals who saw something. And Coleman believes that the Dover demon doesn't match any explicable sighting reported before, like Chupacabra, Sasquatch, Roswell aliens, bat-shaped ear goblins from Hopkinsville. It doesn't match any of those descriptions of what's been reported before. So
yeah,
and it says, and this is something I really wasn't too aware of. It says basically, strangers still the weird sightings like this aren't out of the ordinary in Dover. In that particular area of Massachusetts has its fair share of weirdness throughout the centuries.
Huh.
And so, I don't know. And the thing about this is the glowing eyes, that's kind of a weird thing. You know what I mean? It's like...
The Flatwoods Monster had glowing eyes.
Yeah.
So.
But this is one of those sightings. It's like... It's kind of... it's just so odd, right? It's off-putting in the description and things like that. It's like... Multiple, I can't even say it. Multiple people seen it, different distances. There was enough distance in between the two. There's really no description for it. And I don't know how many Dover demon sightings there's been since then.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's just kind of a strange thing. But I like the idea of it, except for the spindly flesh kind of a thing. And I'm sure there's been research done in books and all that stuff written about it, but it's just like.
And I like Coleman's idea, which is it's almost as if there's a certain area. There are certain areas that collect sightings, basically collect these weird events.
Yeah, there's some kind of triangle up there. I can't think. It'll come to me, but I can't think of what it's called. Where it's like that area kind of goes. I don't know. I used to live in Massachusetts for a while. Lived in South Weymouth.
Yeah.
It's cold up there. Even April is still cold. But the idea, though, of, some long-fingered alien creature description sounds more like an alien to me running around. It's kind of a strange thing. That was in 1977. But kind of the reason why I put this in here is because we're about overdue. You know what I mean? If there hasn't been that many sightings of this thing, we're about ready. There's got to be some more. You watch. There'll be a Dover demon sighting, or there'll be a descriptive sighting of something like the Dover demon somewhere else.
Okay, Stephen King.
Nope. Because I think there was
years.
No, because okay, so
yeah.
Somebody said that in 1972, 5 years before the Dover demon sightings, that they basically saw something similar in the woods.
Okay.
And I think there was actually a sighting right outside of Richmond, Virginia, where there was also something weird like that pale, long, spindly arm kind of thing, sightings in the woods as well.
Oh.
But it seems, like you watch, though, there'll be another one here. Won't take long. I'm sure there'll be one. Before, I want to make a prediction with this kind of thing, but somebody's going to see something and describe it kind of like the Dover demon. Or they'll use that sort of creepypasta made-up term, rake.
Yeah.
And that's kind of part of it. It seems like whenever things get stressful in the world and seasons change and people get sort of locked in or locked down or whatever, we see and hear about more sightings, sometimes of different things.
Huh.
Right? Like the Dover demon is kind of one of those things where it's like it happened a long time ago, hasn't been too many sightings with this whole thing.
That we're aware of.
Right. And and that's kind of why we put the Jersey Devil in here too. Jersey Devil has more sightings than the Dover Demon, but it's also kind of one of those cryptids that doesn't have as many sightings as, like, say, Sasquatch or Chupacabra even.
Or Thunderbirds.
Which you hear about those happening quite often. We followed Thunderbird sightings for a while, but it's like in 1 year it was like 50-something sightings, and here it is, Dover Demon doesn't have that many.
Yeah. I haven't seen a good Thunderbird report lately. Man.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Well, I haven't found any yet.
Like, you know what? It's about time for a Thunderbird sighting. But, it's just kind of one of those things. So we put the Dover Demon in there because if you haven't heard of it, you should go online and look it up because the description and the little pencil drawing and stuff of what this thing possibly looks like is super creepy. Because if I seen something like this skulking through the woods with its long tendril fingers and toes and watermelon-shaped head, I don't know what I'd do. Hopefully I'd be in my car.
So the popular sketch is unnerving just as it is, but the one that John Baxter did, where feet mold to rocks, it's weird that he made sure to add that, and then the popular illustration, its feet are on rocks. So I'm like, wait a second, that's even more. How did both those teenagers think to illustrate that?
I don't know.
So
it's creepy.
Yeah.
So look it up. So if you ever go out in the woods and you see a watermelon head shaped, long, spindly toes and fingers, emaciated, possibly monkey looking body with no hair, running around like an egg shaped head kind of thing going on with big glowing eyes, there you go. Be sure to report it.
Still a goblin to me, except for the ears.
It could be just lack of ears. Yeah. But, because we did sort of talk about that in our last podcast where we talked a little bit about possibilities of like moon-eyed children and small things and goblins and things like that. So it just makes you kind of wonder a little bit. Is it called the Bridgewater Triangle?
Oh, that's it.
I don't know. Went out of my head. But anyway, it's super creepy. And right now somebody's like, it's the Dover Demon, But anyway. Okay, so since we had the Dover Demon in there, and that's a pretty weird looking descriptor.
Bridgewater Triangle is an area of about 200 square miles within southeastern Massachusetts in the United States.
Mm-hmm. Does that cover Dover, I wonder? Because the Dover area is like southwestern Massachusetts.
It doesn't show.
Probably does.
I wish Wikipedia included maps.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Wikipedia is the go-to to look for things that may or may not be true. So let's talk about the Jersey Devil real quick. The Jersey Devil is one of these real interesting sort of cryptid designs that you see out there. I mean, there's a bunch of them, but I think the Jersey Devil is pretty popular because it's got the wings, right? Skinny, long neck with possible like horse head, maybe some horns on top, leathery bat wings, little skinny little Tyrannosaurus Rex looking front legs with hooves on them, long skinny legs, pitchfork tail, right?
Yeah.
Just creepy looking thing. And it makes me wonder if that's, if that description that was written down and put in like the Philadelphia Bulletin back in January of 1909 and was like through an artist rendering of an actual reported description or something that they dramatized to make it look, as scary and weird as possible to get more listeners, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't know. So the original or the origin of the legend, it goes back to the Leeds family. And this is according to popular folklore. The Jersey Devil originated with a Pine Barrens resident named Jane Leeds, also known as Mother Leeds, and the legend states that she had 12 children. And after finding she was pregnant for the 13th time, she cursed the child in frustration, right, crying that the child would be the devil.
Yeah.
And let me just say this, we've done events where we've gone places and we've talked about stuff on the podcast and we've talked to people that come up and, basically talk about the podcast and things like that. The kids that we've talked to seem to enjoy talking about the Jersey Devil because they like it, but the story behind it is just awful. And it's kind of like the worst one you could tell, like the Dover Demon. Some people seen some spooky stuff and they ran away, right? Oh, I see. This thing is like, it's a terrible tale. It goes back to
the colonial period in
1735,
America.
Right? And this is a terrible story about the child could be the devil.
Yeah.
13th child, and Mother Leeds was in labor on a stormy night when her friends gathered around her, and then basically the child was born normal, but then it changed to a creature with hooves, a goat's head, sometimes described as a horse head, bat wings, forked tail, growling and screaming. It beat everyone with its tail before flying up the chimney heading out towards the Pine Barrens, or the pines. That's, alluding to the fact that the possibility is that Mother Leeds, was a witch, and that the child's father was the devil himself.
Yeah.
We have kids coming up and going, oh, I like the Jersey Devil. It's like, okay, witchcraft.
I mean, just from like a historical and like almost like cultural thing, that's a horrible life.
Yeah.
I mean, what if it's like a real kid and there was something wrong with it? Plus societal norms back then. She had 13 kids and she could barely take care of herself.
Yeah.
I mean, but kids are like, I like the Jersey Devil. Ugh.
Yeah. And so there's sightings of this creature back in 1909, but even prior to, it was actually known as the Leeds Devil or the Devil of Leeds.
Yeah.
And so they're connecting it to the Leeds family, right? And they think that they've identified Mother Leeds, I should say, as Deborah Leeds, on the ground that, her husband and stuff, they had 12 kids, and they named them during 1736, which is compatible with the legend. But to have sightings in like 1909, that's like 100 and something years later.
Yeah.
So the thing about the Jersey Devil is, and what we've seen, is that there are people that say they've seen the Jersey Devil. Right?
Yeah.
And there's been sightings and pictures and stuff like that. But it kind of makes me wonder, because it goes back to, you have like all the witches and the Salem witch trials that happened, and then you have everything else, and go back to the Quakers and things like that. And it seems like if there was any kind of...
and a lot of the sightings are in the fall.
Yeah.
Even like, I think Coast to Coast a few years back shared a photo, and it was like fall time where somebody spotted him. So, yeah.
It's, it kind of goes, it's like, I don't know. It seems like anything that went against the puritanical nature, right, of the time seems like had to be the devil's work.
Yeah.
So, Quakers.
Oh.
Devil of Leeds.
I was looking at just some of the explanations, and it's like the misidentification of animals, common negative perceptions of the local rural population.
Yeah.
Of the Pine Barren known as Pineys, which I think is, again, offensive.
It's a disparaging thing. You
Yeah.
know, if you live out on the outskirts of town, you're obviously not good.
You're not educated.
Right. So.
You don't know the wildlife around you, really.
Yeah.
Come on. So
it's kind of like, okay, is this really just sort of a boogeyman type story?
yeah.
You know, that you tell, to children or whatever. But, okay, so why would you tell this? What's the purpose behind telling this boogeyman story to kids? Don't make a baby with the devil.
Don't have more than 12 kids.
Yeah.
And, interesting. Jeff Bruner of the Humane Society of New Jersey thinks a sandhill crane is the basis of the Jersey Devil stories. Guess who else is the basis of a cryptid? Mothman and the sandhill crane.
Is it the same crane?
I think
It's
some
still a
people.
big old bird.
Yeah. So the sandhill cranes and owls both were like explanations for Mothman.
Yeah.
So
they had a series of sightings in 1909, causes the whole public panic, and then begins sort of the urban legend thing. So, I mean, all of our urban legends are somehow or another derived through folklore and stories that you tell people. It's like growing up in Virginia, where we were, we had the Witch of Witch Duck.
and Witchapungo.
And the Witchapungo, which are the same.
Yeah. Well, they stopped calling her Witch Duck when I got to school.
Yeah, well, they had to call her Witchapungo because...
Yeah. Because witch duck is derived from what we used to do to witches back then.
Yeah, not we. Don't include me in on that.
Okay.
What they used to do.
Yeah, colonial era people used to duck
Quaker,
the
puritanical, all that stuff. So it's kind of a crazy thing because if you think about it, it's like we used to learn that kind of stuff in school. See, and this was like one of my favorite times of year is the fall as it leads into winter because, it's not hot. You can wear a coat if you want. Bugs don't, primarily fly in your mouth or try to go in your eyes.
Yeah.
It's a good time of year, man, and Halloween's coming and all that stuff. And some people are like, well, like how can you like the fall? And it's like, well, wait till you get older and a little fatter. You'll love the fall, right?
Well, yeah, but like back then, you're right. In school, since I grew up in Virginia, it would go to colonial history or social studies, and you'd learn about some of these local like folklore things.
Yeah.
And it was actually incorporated into your public education.
Yeah.
So,
and you learn, and it would kind of lead right into Halloween.
Yeah.
Where you had the Halloween, school party where, you had to bring in 35 cupcakes and all that kind of crazy stuff. But when I was in school in the 70s, though, is funny enough because, I was born in 1970, so I was 7 years old when they had the Dover demon sighting. But what we learned about our local weirdness with the whole Witchapungo was a lot more graphic, I think, than what you hear now. I don't even think they do it anymore now. They probably don't even talk about it because,
Well, we would get really creepy stuff let's learn about the Witchapungo, and then our next field trip would be Back Bay Wildlife Refuge.
Yeah.
Fantastic, which Back Bay Wildlife Refuge, the northern end of it, I believe, leads towards one of the beaches that the Witch of Pungo or Witch Duck, she used to hang out, I guess.
Yeah.
And do her magic.
Yeah.
So.
It was pretty,
Yeah, fun times.
Yeah, well, you could still, you can go to Witch Duck Road in Virginia. And there's a lot of colonial stuff in Virginia, so you get a lot of that. And it's kind of around the same time as the Jersey Devil, so. But yeah, I'm sure there is basically a ton more sightings of the Jersey Devil here recently.
Well, yeah,
than
one
there has
pops
been
up
to Dover.
every couple of years.
Yeah, so if you do a search, you'll find some. And there's pictures and things like that. And it's funny because with the internet being the way it is, it's like anybody can find a picture of the Jersey Devil and just go ahead and put it on the internet for everybody to look at. But, in some ways, the Jersey Devil description can be almost like a chupacabra description, too. So it's I kind of put it in that category. You have cryptids, you have lesser known cryptids, or maybe not quite so popular cryptids. And in that category is chupacabra, Dover demon, Jersey Devil. Did I say chupacabra?
Yeah.
Yeah, chupacabra, Jersey Devil. Dover Demon.
Bunny Man in Virginia.
Yeah, Bunny Man, which is weird, but that's kind of a thing. But, stuff like that. But when you got like Bigfoot, that's pretty popular. Yeti, it's pretty popular. Sasquatch type sightings, those are, that's the cool one now, right? The more popular one that's been going around. So.
Yeah.
And then you got like Loch Ness Monster.
Or Mothman.
Yeah. Thunderbirds, big. Even Mothman kind of falls in that lesser, maybe not quite so famously known cryptid. Although the Mothman is more popular, I would think, than Jersey Devil.
Yeah, and I mean,
primarily because of movies.
His resurgence in 2017.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know, kind of a strange thing. Again, though, we're getting in the fall, and we've noticed that there's more sightings that are happening just in general. And one of the things that seems to be pretty interesting is happening with all these sightings and stuff that's going down, right? Is that since everybody's locked in, like you were saying, or pretty much kind of like not maybe able to get out and about like they normally do, people are spending more time at home or around the home or trying to social distance and be safe or whatever it is. What are people doing? Looking to the skies.
Yeah. Well, we talked about earlier this year the spike in paranormal incidences.
Yeah.
And now, since we are at least going into our own backyards, we're looking to the skies.
Yep.
So
it's funny you bring up the paranormal thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I've been reading this little article keeps going out and telling you basically how people are so stressed out because of this whole pandemic thing that we're going through. That cases of like drinking, like binge drinking and just general consumption of alcohol has gone way up. People are way more depressed than they were.
Yeah.
They're locked down. Social gatherings and things like that aren't really helping so much because they're not happening with enough. In other words, you're stuck with yourself and your family for a lot of this. And so you're kind of like going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happens when you go crazy? All that stress, all that energy, all that anxiety goes out into the universe. And the possibility remains that, hey, when you add that much stress out and that energy that goes along with it, you can create or have more paranormal experiences.
Yeah.
And, some more poltergeist activity and things like that. So people are starting to see more ghosts. They're having more experiences. And a lot of that could be attributed to the fact that everybody's just sort of freaked out right now. And if you go on TikTok, of all places, and just start looking for paranormal stuff, there's like shadow people and there's sightings. There's all this crazy stuff on TikTok. And I'm sure a large chunk of it is absolutely not real. But there's some good ones on there.
See, when you say not real, I
mean, it's like it's obvious it's not real.
Okay, so deliberate.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because I genuinely, as much of a skeptic as I am, I always say I genuinely want to believe the person's experience,
I do too, but you can't look at a clip that's like a minute long.
Yeah.
And if you're not familiar with TikTok or you're like, oh, that's for kids, you're wrong. I mean, TikTok is one of those things that it really grew in popularity because of people being locked down. But it is a place where you can see these little quick clips of stuff and go, wow, what was that? I will warn you ahead of time if you're going to do, TikTok or something like that, look for like these clips of like haunted stuff, paranormal stuff, weird stuff, sighting stuff, aliens, Bigfoot, whatever. Some of them have the jump scare. So just that's my warning to you. So at the very end, it's obvious it becomes not real when the scary thing jumps in your face.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Not that that's happened to me once or twice, but.
Or 3 times.
Maybe you. I know it's coming. But yeah, there's been a lot of like these little clips on there. And some of the stuff, though, it's really hard to discern if it's real or not. But that's the problem with these clips and the way that people are using their phones. Is that you don't see enough of the sceneries. You don't see enough. So, I mean, you could be sitting there watching one of these clips and a door slams, but since the orientation is not wide angle, it's basically up and down. Anybody could be hiding there with the string, but there's some weird stuff. So, and even I've noticed that even that has increased. So maybe it's just coincidental. Maybe it's because I have so much time on my hands that we're not out there doing stuff. We're not doing these events and things like that because these events have been canceled.
Yeah.
That we're kind of seeing
that
it.
Other event I wanted to do, the gypsy pagan one, that got canceled yesterday.
See.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have said anything because what am I going to say?
Days before it was supposed to happen.
Yep.
And you're going to say, I told you so.
Yep. You were like, let's go. It'll be great.
But
And you know what? Hey, it probably would have been, but what did I say? They're going to cancel this. You watch.
yeah, and see, the thing is, I have started to make more paranormal and spooky jewelry.
Yeah, well, stuff with intent.
Yeah, and it's crafted intent. So it's that imbued stuff that I make with like the metaphysical aspects, a lot of stones that I've researched and things like that. And I was like, ooh, this would be a great event to like debut some of this.
Yeah.
Nope, canceled.
Yeah. I mean, it'd probably be a good time. I don't really think it's my thing. Everybody looks like Stevie Nicks out there running around, which is okay, but it's just kind of like, man.
Oh, I think
it's kind of like going to the craft store for me with a lot of this stuff. It's like,
my friend Richard, I think he shared a meme recently, and it was like, just because you don't brush your hair and you wear flowy outfits doesn't make you Stevie Nicks or something like that. It was like really disparaging.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Stevie Nicks is cool, man.
Yeah.
So it's all good.
So, we should get back on track.
We actually are on track. Because with everybody sitting around being sort of locked down and things being the way they are and things are stressful and violent and everything else, and people are having more sightings, they're drinking more and probably are not in the best mental state, even with schools trying to start, because you have all these things to worry about with schools and kids and video conferencing and everything else. People are seeing more ghost things. And I think people are actually utilizing their outdoor spaces more.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be stuck in a house forever. So you go outside. Or what can you do to amuse yourself or occupy your time as you look to the skies, right?
Yeah.
And so people are doing that, and that seems to be the new latest and greatest trend. Instead of like people's like, hey, I like bird watching and things like that. Where you go out there and you go, is looking to the skies, looking for UFO type stuff, right? And there's an article that basically says 2020 is shaping up to be a banner year for close encounters as UFO spotting replaces bird watching as new pandemic obsession.
I like the byline quote, which is, in a time of crisis, we look elsewhere for salvation.
Yeah.
Even if it means looking to the stars. That kind of speaks to a larger message, which is we are so sick of each other and humanity, we are looking elsewhere.
Sure. And this kind of ties in the fact that, we've had recent news articles about UFOs and disclosure and things like that. And I'm saying disclosure with two quotes, with the finger quotes, because what really got disclosed, I don't think is really any kind of groundbreaking thing, especially since, certain newspapers would put out an article saying, hey, check it out. Here's what it says. It's been disclosed and, otherworldly vehicles. And then they had to walk it back like 2 days later. And it's almost like they do that kind of thing on purpose now. Put out an article that says one crazy thing and then wait 2 days before they bring it back and say, oh, we misspoke. And what does that do? That gets all these viewers of your magazine or your newspaper or whatever it is, New York Times. And pretty much what happens after that is they say it, people blow it all up on the internet or whatever. If you're interested in this kind of thing, then they walk it back and go, no, that's not what was really said. We misspoke. And then when you do for example, a podcast about it, we go, no, that's not what they said at all. And that's not what really is going on here from what we've seen based off those news articles. And I'm not talking about the conspiracy theory that goes on 50 plus years, right? It's just based off what was said and what was put out there. People are like, I disagree 100% in what you said. It's like, well, you can't, dude, because 2 days later, what happens?
It gets walked back.
Oh, no, that's not what we said. Well, here's what they really said, and that, they didn't say there was otherworldly vehicles in our possession. It's like, disagree all you want.
Okay.
I'm not saying that sort of thing doesn't actually exist, because I think it's kind of weird, if you look at the entire thing. But I do personally stand by what I think is that a lot of what we've been seeing has been military craft or military technology, right?
Yeah.
With drones and swarm technology and all that sort of thing, and just the whole idea behind it. And our idea of technology and warfare is changing. But the fact that people are using this UFO sighting, as a new form of bird watching, I think we're going to see a whole lot more.
True. I do agree. Because
people were looking.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go out and party or go to festivals or conferences. And even if you've run out of hobbies, like, all my knitting friends.
And there's lots of cities you don't want to go out to at night.
That's the other thing. I mean, civil unrest is causing a lot of that too. So why not just go out in your backyard or go to...
Grab a lawn chair.
Yeah.
Kick that thing back in the full recline. If you got those old school, like, plastic tube chair things, like beach chairs. Ones that, like, ratchet, click it all the way back and get a drink.
Yeah.
Because, you got a gallon jug or whatever, and kick back and watch the skies for a while.
I mean, it makes sense.
I mean, yeah, we should do that.
Well, if it would stop raining, we would.
Yeah. So. Well, if we wait, see, I'm hoping that this big shift in temperature cruises across the U.S. and just kills the crap out of mosquitoes. I'm not a big fan of those guys.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
But with bird watching being replaced, and it's now going to this extreme. I mean, because bird watching, no offense, it's a little.
You better be very careful.
It's a little of like your parents' hobby type thing.
I don't know. There's a lot of.
I'm not saying your parents, but it's an older hobby.
Well,
Yeah.
Anytime you see it on TV or whatever, it's always an older person. Sure.
Yeah.
But there's some youngsters that like to look at birds and bugs and stuff.
Oh, I like taking
nerds.
I like taking pictures of birds when they actually cooperate.
Well, that's part of it. But yeah. I mean, and there is. I mean, it's a huge hobby. It's not just like people spend tons of money trying to photograph wildlife and birds, and we call them birders. They spend the big money because in order to get those feathers and the detail and all that stuff, they'll spend a ton of money on a nice lens to try to be able to capture that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So pretty much, I mean, it kind of makes sense, and it's something I hadn't really thought about, is that, okay, so since people aren't really doing things and going out more often, that, why not turn their eyes to the skies and see some possible UFOs and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And if it is a pandemic obsession, it kind of makes sense. I don't know. Especially since all the, the news was out with the whole UFO thing. It's become really popular. And all these stupid shows that are on TV now, there's like 1 million of them.
Yeah, because
UFOs.
All the normal people, and if you're tuning in and you're normal, thank you for tuning in, they've kind of run out of their regular television to watch. So they're starting to watch the weird channels.
Yeah, I was going to say, Nora, I don't know if I would. Yeah, thank you for tuning in, normal people. What is it? Everybody else is like, how dare ye? How dare ye? And
then it's funny because we're
I think I don't think that's just normal people. I just think that's people in general.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You got to have something to watch. I'm sure everybody's gone through most of the home improvement shows.
Which is funny because the switch around to that is the fact that you and I have started to watch some like normal television. Like
what?
Like that bartender show that you're watching.
It's not a bartender show. It's called Bar Rescue.
Oh, okay.
Where this guy comes in and, they take a bar that's in trouble and he screams at him a little bit.
Yeah, because you can only watch so much Ancient Aliens.
Well, it's like Ancient Aliens, paranormal fact or fiction or whatever. The woods are haunted. There's all these like shows, and a lot of them are basically where they grab clips from other episodes from other shows and then they put them all together and make a new show. And I mean, it is what it is. But I mean, you can only watch so much of that stuff before you're like, I got to watch something else.
Yeah.
But I like the idea that people are looking to the skies, because hopefully these people that are looking to the skies, and there'll be more people and maybe possibly some better video and things like that. So when a video clip shows up somewhere, you can look at it and go, yeah, that's obviously not technology from our world, and maybe make it more specific towards, instead of being an unexplained aerial phenomenon, being like, holy crap, there's nothing on this planet that we currently have technology-wise that could be even remotely close to what we're seeing.
And it's funny because you put this article in, so I decided not to put these two other articles in. But both of them, released on the same day, tried to claim that Western Pennsylvania and then Charlotte, North Carolina, both rank very high in UFO sightings. But then you clicked on the articles and you read into them, and Western Pennsylvania, it's over a very long period of time. And then Charlotte, it's only like, it's in the top 25.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they're trying to bring attention that people are talking about this.
Yeah. I'm surprised that there's not more instances of people seeing underground military bases. Because some of the ones that were underground are being reactivated and things like that and be coming back, coming back into use, I guess. Yeah. I'm surprised there's not more of those, like, seeing craft go flying out of the side of the mountain or something like that.
Ooh.
I don't know. Kind of a strange thing. So it's just something to think about. So if you are an avid bird watcher and you just, for whatever reason, happen to be listening to the CreepGeeks podcast, you might want to just take your eyes to the skies instead of looking in a tree trying to see a ruby-throated warbler.
Take that thousands of dollars lens and point it to the sky.
Yeah. I don't know. It's kind of strange, but,
Yeah.
But
bird watching is also a fall activity, too. So
yeah. Well,
yeah.
Yeah, you have things that start to migrate, and primarily with the leaves changing, that's a big tourist industry. There's I think people actually call them leafers.
Yeah, leaf peepers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which sounds kind of weird, but, I wouldn't be surprised. Actually, that's perfect. See, if you're a leaf peeper and you're just staying in your car, you can go look at all that stuff, but I don't know. I think this whole pandemic thing has really sort of, turned people more towards being maybe not as active. So it just seems like in general with everything that's been going down, they talk about things like, the canals in Venice are clear and have fish running through them. And, animals that were scared of humans or whatever are starting to encroach more because there's less human activity. So, all that stuff sort of seems to be kind of resetting itself. And it just kind of makes it one of those things where, I think it wouldn't take very long for everything to just sort of go back to nature if we weren't involved. So, I don't know. But see, with the whole sightings happening and things like that, because you will see an uptick in sightings. There's already been reported sightings of possible dogmen or werewolf, whatever you want to call it. Depends how you look at it, like in places like Mississippi, and Bigfoot sightings in the Ozark Mountains and more UFO sightings just in general.
Locally, at least in the western North Carolina, Tennessee region, we've had an uptick in either Bigfoot sightings or tracks being found or experiences.
Yeah, possible sounds being recorded, which is compared to the Sierra sounds.
Oh, yeah.
So, which, I don't know. And it kind of goes to the point where the more sightings you have, more experiences and sightings that are being reported on reputable news places such as Facebook and stuff like that, the more you're going to see sightings and things that are maybe more disingenuous.
Or influenced.
What you normally say.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
But we
just kind of happen to notice it.
Yeah.
So.
And we're noticing it, so what we're kind of hinting at you guys is, check your local social media groups, like Facebook groups, and your local news. Like some of the people at Wild and Weird, they noticed their local news had some weird sightings.
Yep.
And, luckily, because we as Americans were all at home, they all really did some good research on that. So I'm kind of doing the same thing down here in Western North Carolina and trying to pay attention to some recent Bigfoot reports. So you guys, listeners, do the same. If you notice something weird going on, just some weird chatter locally, look it up yourself. Do a little bit of research and maybe even reach out to us. Tell us about it.
You're going to see more. It's going to show up.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thing. So is the uptick in sightings caused just because it's the change of the season, things are migrating and stuff? Because if you look at, say, Sasquatch or Bigfoot, for example, you probably don't want to be where it's really cold. So you're going to migrate, right? Canadian geese supposed to migrate, but when they don't really migrate, they just kind of land in your parking lot at work and stay there. You just become residential geese.
Or
things maybe aren't migrating as much as they used to, but there's still that time of year where it's definitely a shift in temperature where they would go where it's warmer, right?
Yeah, well, New Mexico,
Bigfoot probably has to do that.
The balloon fiesta has been canceled, so maybe y'all should go look for those heron things that come in.
Well, they come in every year, but
yeah, I mean,
I don't know. So, is it seasonal? Is it like a real thing where just more reports just happen in general because it's seasonal, it's changing the seasons, and maybe things are migrating? Or is it just because we're all sort of looking towards Halloween where things are getting sort of, spooky because everything starts to die off and you get that sort of, decay and all that sort of, dark nights where you get up in the morning and it's dark and you go to work and you come home and it's dark and it's, gloomy and rainy all the time and cold and you're not going out as much. So everything seems to be more creepy.
Ooh.
Is it just one of those things or is there something to the idea that You know?
Well,
maybe it's always been this way. And maybe since we've got, just in general, more eyes looking at the entire subject that we're talking about, like 14 and stuff, or 40 and stuff, maybe we'll get more reports just because more people are looking at it. Because, we've been doing this podcast for a while, right? And we've noticed that there's a lot more people seem to be more interested in this entire thing than it was before.
Huh. I just thought of something, though. Since 2020 has been a dumpster fire of a year.
Yes.
And a pandemic and unrest and just everything seems kind of awful.
Yeah.
Where's Mothman? Isn't he supposed to show up when bad stuff happens?
If you believe that, if you think he's an harbinger of things, but I don't know. Is it coincidental between those two events, where he shows up? I don't know. See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You're probably going to see, like Dover Demon sighting, maybe, possibly. Jersey Devil possibly sighting. You're going to see Dogman sightings. You're going to see more Bigfoot sightings. I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe not necessarily Mothman, but the whole winged creature sightings has been on the rise just in the past year or two.
I have a prediction
around Illinois and stuff, but you're probably going to see more of those, maybe spreading even further down, down the country, right? More heading more south.
Yeah, and I have a lazy prediction that by November, actually middle of November, we're going to have a winged humanoid sighting in the Midwest. I just know it.
It's probably already happened.
Yeah, if not, the
past 2 years have been like lots of like Thunderbird / rock / big bird type sightings. So I don't know.
But if he is a harbinger, or whatever Mothman is, or this winged humanoid phenomenon, we're going to see something in the skies soon. I just have a feeling. Well,
according to TikTok, somebody's seen what looked to be almost like a pterodactyl flying around in North Carolina.
Really?
Yeah, and this dude was all like, I told you guys, man. Everybody was calling me crazy. I told you I seen it. So it's possibly going to spread. I don't know. It's just, and here's something too, because we talked about our podcast before. We talked about intent and like what actual, does intent actually influence the experience that you have, and can enough people think about things and put that intent towards summoning up something like a tulpa type situation? Is
manifestation.
Yeah, is that a factor in all this stuff too? Do more people, sort of think about it and it becomes a thing and you start to see more?
But that would go to that ominous statement that I always have problems with, I want to believe.
Well,
But
see, and there's another factor too. It's kind of trying to figure this whole thing out. It's like, well, if this is more accepted now, and there are shows on TV now, right? And you're not looked at as being necessarily a nut job or a crackpot when you say, yeah, man, I've seen something up in the sky. If everybody's more accepting to it and it's become, popular and easier to report, are we going to be seeing more, and have we been seeing more because it's okay to say you've seen something without, a fear of ridicule and possibly losing your job? So I don't know. We just noticed that it seems like in the fall, there's more experiences. There's more reports of experiences with different types of cryptids that have occurred in just in the past 4 years alone than what we've seen before.
Yeah.
So I don't know. What do you guys think? If you guys have an opinion on that sort of thing, you want to chime in somewhere and leave us an email or a message or call the number or whatever, or, share what you think on our Facebook page, let us know. It's just kind of a curious thing. And really what we're asking is that this is just something that we noticed, and it's purely sort of coincidental at this point because there's nothing to really back any of this up other than like, it seems like we're just seeing more, or have noticed that we've seen more things happen in the fall. What do you think?
Spooky season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it because it's hot. I'm tired of being hot.
I'm looking forward to having more stuff to talk about.
Well, yeah, that's part of it too. But yeah. I'm just done being hot.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe that's just because I don't have a tolerance for it because I haven't been out there doing it, like going outside. You know what I mean? It's like. It's just, this year, I'm just trying to get through it. There's been like one good thing has happened this year so far. I mean, I'm just trying to ride it out. Hopefully 2021 is much better. But I just think that
there's
the
two
best
good things.
Well,
I mean, you lived.
Well, yeah.
And
And grandbaby.
Grandbaby.
Yeah.
So 2 good things happened this year.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Because it could have been dead.
Stop.
It's possible, man.
Stop it.
It's going to happen sooner or later. Or maybe not. Who knows? We're all part of the simulation.
What kind of glitch in the Matrix was your titanium neck?
My titanium neck bones. Yeah. And cadaver bone, right? So, yeah. I don't know. Well, it's kind of a thing. Who knows, man? Because there's people who's like, hey, man, disclosure's going to happen, UFOs and all that stuff. All that stuff's going to happen.
Since it is cryptid season, I was thinking about it. You know, it goes great with cryptids in fall.
Whiskey.
Bigfoot coffee.
Oh.
Why'd you have to say whiskey?
Because I didn't realize you were going to try to slip in the fact that we have Bigfoot coffee, and you could buy it.
Yeah. See?
I mean, it is good. Because here's the deal. We have the coffee, we bring it, and we basically sell it. It's good stuff. People like it. We've had people come back and get more, tell us that they've enjoyed it, that kind of thing. I drink it when we don't sell it. So it's kind of like I win, right? Because we have it, master roaster has figured out, and, we found a taste profile for it that we like.
Yeah.
It's not like Black Death where if you spill it on your coffee table, it's going to etch the varnish off of it, that kind of thing.
Low acid.
Yeah, because, I drink coffee and I like it strong,
but I noticed,
angry and bitter.
I noticed in the
like
fall. Stop it.
But this stuff is good, so it's smooth, but
in the fall, we kept selling out of it, so.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
But, if it doesn't get sold, I drink it.
But get yourself some Bigfoot coffee and then go out in the woods and go find Bigfoot for us.
Yeah, it's our Bigfoot blend. It does smell good. It's good. I like it, man. It's like, yeah, that's what's tough when we bring like a fresh roasted batch and we've got it in the back of the albino rhino, our DIY adventure investigation mobile, and we're going to a freaking conference, man. That's all you smell. And what's worse is when we've gone a couple times and I've made coffee before I left and it wasn't ours and it was just regular old like black silk Folgers and it was garbage. And I'm like, oh man. I'm one of these people where it's like I get up, I get my coffee, right? Because I need it. I like it. I was in the military. Coffee's been a thing, whatever, man. And when I make a garbage cup of coffee, it just seems like it wrecks my whole day. Because, the best part of waking up, right? But it's true, though. And it's just a thing, man. It's like going to start the day out with a good cup of coffee. And, it lets me...
But that speaks to that whole pandemic mental state, blah, blah. So if you're having...
No, I've had that my entire life. We're talking like almost... I've been drinking coffee since I was, I don't know, 13 or 14 or something like that. So what is that? 36 years of drinking delicious coffee in the morning. And the first cup is the best.
Okay.
And, there's been times where I've been really aggravated and got up and got my pot ready and got it all cooked up and stuff. And like, let me go ahead and
I remember when
to pour it and I look and somebody else has gotten to it before I have.
Oops.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me, man.
Well, I remember when we went and recorded the Brown Mountain Lights. It was so cold. And one of our friends was with us and he was so surprised that you brought the coffee. He's like...
Why? That's the best time.
Yeah. So, and I brought hot chocolate, and it got cold because I had a knockoff cup,
Got to get a good cup. It's all warm. That's what you do, man. It's wintertime. Get a good old cup of hot coffee. It's delicious.
And go watch Ghost Lights. So,
yep, yeah. Hopefully. Mm-hmm. Anyway, there you go. So we figured we kind of talk about it and probably a coincidence or whatever it is, just possibly just a noticing that we've noticed.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I fully expect more disclosure about UFO type stuff, if you want to call it disclosure. More sightings, more reported sightings, just general weirdness will be on the uptick.
Yeah.
And whether it's caused by the fact that it's fall, we're moving into a spooky season, or if everybody's just kind of weirded out about the whole 2020 thing and the pandemic and all the stresses that come with it. And hey, let's not just throw in a dumpster fire election that's probably going to happen. It's just a thing. But if you happen to notice, or if you've been paying attention, or if you've noticed some sightings or just an uptick in weird activity in your particular area and you want to share with us, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you disagree, let us know.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go. But I think we're just about done.
Okay.
So, yeah, kind of is what it is.
Yeah. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Again, if you want to message us, give us feedback, share a story, or you're noticing an uptick in strange phenomenon, email us. That's going to be contact@creepgeeks.com. We do need to check our inbox and maybe do a listener mail episode soon. But thank you for writing in if you do. And join us on social media. We have pretty active social media across all major fronts. And thank you to our Patreon patrons. That's going to be Dave, Adam, James, Bobby, John, and John. Our patrons actually got our latest sticker creation. That's the Dumpster Fire 2020 sticker. You can find us on Facebook if you want to check out that sticker, or join us on Patreon and support us, and you might just get one in the mail too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
So, hey, see you later. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Bye.